Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending. I'm really, all of us from the entire CAIR-Arizona team, we're truly touched to see the outpouring of community members over here tonight. It's very, it shows how much love and support there is within this Arizona community as well. I'd like to thank the law enforcement in the back for attending as well. Please give them a round of applause. So, as the chairman, I guess I'm supposed to make some type of official speech. I'm actually probably just going to freewheel it right now. I think I do better with that. So, basically, I just want to give an update as to where we're at as a chapter. And also, I want to, before I move on, I was the one that wanted to cry for Anas, but Yasser beat me to it. But Imam Anas, he literally my story with CAIR-Arizona just started literally with an email. I'm standing up here as the chairman today, but it started as just a basic email. 2010 was one of the worst times for Islamophobia in the country. I've been writing for over 12 years on the issue of Islamophobia and Middle East issues, things like that. During that time, we saw, mosque opposition. We saw just a huge increase in the level of vitriol and hate, masjids being blocked all across the country. Pamela Geller, Robert Spencer, all these people you saw in Max's speech, the $119 million, they were starting to really, get organized during that time frame and really become part of the public discourse. So as a writer, I felt like, I needed to do something to expand my horizons. It wasn't, just writing alone wasn't doing enough. I needed to be part of an organization and a movement to try and better the community. So I met with Imam Anas at one of the local masjids, and he asked me, do you know what you're getting into? And we didn't realize how big of an uphill battle we had to climb, but alhamdulillah, if you see the work and dedication that he put in these last few years, and most of it, 99% of it is behind the scenes. That's the thing. The things that you don't see, we're not going to publicize all the legwork and all the due diligence that you're doing, whether it's, getting nonprofit status restored, or, building bridges with other communities, or, building a strong board as well, getting strong volunteers. All of that is part of his work. And, one more time, give him a round of applause. So I'll give you an update about the organization. We stood in front of you last year, really as a new iteration of the old CAIR-Arizona. We're basically starting from a baseline level, and we stood in front of you as our community, and with a vision and a dream. What can we do to make this a viable organization for the next generations to come? And alhamdulillah, thankfully, you believed in us and you supported us, and you were able to fund our programs. And I stand in front of you today just saying that we have not only met the expectations that you set out for us, we've actually exceeded those expectations. If you look at some of the programs we've installed, we've hired a civil rights coordinator, Samantha. Give Samantha a round of applause. She's done a great job. Samantha has been a very, very good addition to our team, and we're very proud and happy to have her. And she's going to be a great leader for years to come, and hopefully become a lawyer one day as well. And we want to support her in that effort. But we've hired her. That has expanded our ability to take on cases from the community just by having a dedicated employee for that. Before, it was just board members who were taking calls. I have a full-time job. Yasser has a full-time job. Nita is a full-time student. The other board members have full-time lives. Imagine taking calls about cases, in the middle of your day. It's very difficult. Now that we have an employee who will actually be dedicated to that, that has been a big, big win for us. And, we've expanded our outreach as well. If you look at the programs that we've implemented, like the scholarship program, that has been extremely good. We've funded 2 deserving young students in trying to further their education. That's been a big deal as well. We've brought on interns, Liban and Zainab as well. Liban is our legal intern. He's walking in right now, right on cue. and Zainab as well have been very extremely helpful for that. So we're trying to enrich our organization and try to give back to the younger generation in the community as well, as you see. So we're creating opportunities, and this is now a stream of opportunity that arises for the younger generation here in our community. So that is extremely positive. We've taken on cases this year. There's been issues of religious questioning at the border. There's been individuals, Muslims, who are getting stopped at the border, who are asked, how many times a day do you pray? Do you believe in the Quran? What mosque do you go to? Does any other religion across the board get asked these questions if you're a U.S. citizen or anything else like that? No, that only happens to Muslim Americans. It started happening at the northern border in Michigan, Canada border, and now it's happening here in Arizona as well. These are things that we don't understand that are happening on a day-to-day basis. And we helped individuals who are being questioned at the border by going and talking to our elected officials on Capitol Hill, going and saying, hey, this is happening in your district. Do you know that in Tucson, or close to the Tucson border, people are being questioned? This is, a lot of times our elected officials don't know a lot of what's going on with law enforcement organizations. There's a lot of abuses of power, and so from an organizational perspective, we always respect our law enforcement, but also, when there are abuses of power, if people are being religiously questioned or extrajudicially exiled, we have to stand up, because who else is going to stand up if that's not the case? So now we're here today, and we still have a lot of work to do. As you see, there's a huge Islamophobia industry that's out there. There's, $119 million has been spent in just the last few years alone, and that number is extremely conservative. That's what you don't know. This is $119 million being fed into 37 organizations whose full-time job is to defame Islam. So these are people who are making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars per year for salaries and millions of dollars otherwise in funding anti-Islam hate. How are we going to stand up as a community? We need a strong organization. We need people who are going to stand up in the community, stand up in the media, and CAIR is one of those organizations that will do that. We need people who are going to be able to take on cases. Our dreams for the future are to hire a civil rights attorney. Right now, thankfully, we have pro bono attorneys locally that help us. In a case of where a Somali individual was being visited repeatedly by the FBI on fishing expeditions, where he's not accused of any crime, but he basically was just visited repeatedly. He didn't realize that he had a right to an attorney this whole time. He was never informed of this right. And so then we got a pro bono attorney involved with his case, and they sent a letter, and he was never questioned about that again. We've helped individuals in prison, for example. An individual in prison was being discriminated against, and he was not being fed proper sahur meals during Ramadan. He was basically given a piece of bread and some butter as his morning meal, while the rest of the inmate population was able to eat their full breakfast meal. And they said, oh, well, you're not eating at the right time, so that's too bad for you. All we had to do was make a phone call, and they were able to make that accommodation, and he's taken care of. We have to make sure that all facets of the community are taken care of. And don't think just because we're not seeing the cases here that they're not happening over here. That is a major concern. What you heard about in San Francisco with the Abercrombie and Fitch case, that could be your daughter. That could be, her working at a department store and her regional manager telling her that, hey, you can't work here anymore because you're not up to our dress code, or you don't have our company's look. So what will we do in that case if that arises over here? As we are today, we can help them to a certain extent, but imagine if we were her legal representation. Imagine if we can hire an attorney to actually take on these cases and hold these companies accountable that are acting out of line as well. So bottom line is we have a lot of work to do as a community. I'm going to close up with that, but today I just ask everybody to be generous when you donate to us. We raise a fraction of the money of the Islamophobia industry, but look how much barakah is in the money that you're giving to us. How much it's stretched out over the course of the year and the limited funds that we have. These people are getting paid millions of dollars, and they're still not as effective as a strong community organization that stands up and has a unity of direction and will, stand steadfast in the face of hate. So we will. Thank you. So I'll close with that, but please support your chapter. This is your community organization. This is, we don't get funding from anywhere else. This is all funded by the Arizona community. We really hope that you guys will stand up and take us, and hopefully we will realize those dreams for the next generations to come as well. Thank you.
Imran's quick speech could not highlight enough the amount of work that CAIR has put together in the past year. We have had representatives featured on the CAIR National blog. We've discussed issues like the interrogation inappropriately at the border. We've had dozens of local news sources reach out to us to condemn Islamic acts of terror. We've been the first responders to go out and condemn and memorialize these acts of terror, memorialize the victims of these acts of terror. We've empowered and encouraged activism in our youth community at a grassroots level by hosting halakas and seminars, including the Know Your Rights seminar. We have also collaborated with leaders and representatives in the Arizona community to educate non-Muslims about the true beliefs of Islam. We've had representatives at the Muslim Day on the Hill. We've helped prisoners receive certain rights during Ramadan when they're not being accommodated for. We've also set up our Facebook page, which serves as a means to provide information and up-to-date blogs, media posts, etc. for the community to learn about a lot of CAIR's missions about civil rights and liberties of the Muslim community. And of course, we've provided these scholarships to the recipients that Imran has mentioned. We have done so much great work in this past year, and we hope that you have been hearing about it throughout the year, but we also have a quick video that also highlights the work that we've done. So I'm going to play that for you. And again, we encourage you to not take the work that we've done lightly. We raise all of our money here. We raise that money and we use it throughout the year. And like we said, we can only imagine CAIR's missions improving and growing out bigger and helping more people in our community. Imagine if some of these things that are happening in California, on the East Coast, all over happened here. We really hope that you guys can help us out and make sure that we do have the legal representation that we deserve.
In 2010, it was a time of peak Islamophobia in the country where there was mosque protests that were happening, there was attacks against Muslims, there was a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment that was flowing throughout the country, and Islam was being used as a wedge issue in terms of election.
As Muslim Americans who live in a post-9/11 era, and for some of us who've even experienced 9/11, I feel as though we set a precedent for all the Muslim American generations to come. And the most important question, in my opinion, is who's going to stand up for us? And the answer is simple: no one.
The woman in custody facing hate crime charges after telling police she pushed the man to his death because she thought he was a Muslim.
Here at home, a vigil for the victims of the Boston Marathon bombings is now underway. It's being held at ASU, co-hosted by the Council of American Islamic Relations and Muslim Leaders of America.
The Arizona chapter is a growing chapter, so here within the Arizona Muslim community, we are facing a lot of problems that a lot of larger Muslim communities are facing on a day-to-day basis. Where we've seen an anti-Sharia law being passed here in 2010.
CAIR-Arizona is an organization that represents me holistically. And what I mean by that is that CAIR-Arizona is looking out for my interests. It's looking out for my masajid. It's looking out for the charities I donate to. It's looking out for the Islamic schools that I went to, the Islamic schools my brothers and sisters go to, and the Islamic schools that my children will go to.
So CAIR-Arizona is really important to our community because when the time comes where you're being discriminated against, or when this company that's been spending millions of dollars into creating this fear in people's hearts and minds about Muslims causes someone to vandalize your home, or to push around your child at school, or rip off your daughter's hijab, when that moment comes, you will need someone to help you. And in that time, there's going to be no one except for an organization like CAIR, who's by your side, who helps you find the lawyers that will come to your aid, that will stand up for you in the court, who will fight for your rights.
More than 100 people are expected to attend tonight's vigil. It's just getting started. Definitely an interfaith gathering of people, a lot of students who feel deep sorrow for the terror that paralyzed Boston for nearly a week. Islamic leaders here are condemning the bombings at the Boston Marathon, but they're also quite concerned there will be a backlash against the Islamic community because the two suspects were Muslim.
The fact is, it doesn't really matter what the background of is a person, if they're Muslim, if they're non-Muslim. I would be here condemning this act, whether it was a Christian or a Jewish person, a Buddhist, someone who is atheist. Muslims as a people condemn terrorism. Our books condemn terrorism. One quote we kept mentioning over and over again when we were publicizing this event was straight out of the Quran, is to kill one man is to kill all of mankind.
We look at the other CAIR chapters around the country, we see the amazing things that they're doing. And there's no reason why CAIR-Arizona can't be doing the same thing. SubhanAllah, if you look at the progress we've made over the last year, it's phenomenal. And the amount of cases that we're getting suggests that there's so much more work that we can do. And the only way we can do this work is if we support this organization as a community, because this is our organization.
I see a very positive future for CAIR-Arizona. We are growing exponentially. Alhamdulillah, last year we had a great support from the community. So this organization is completely funded and supported by the Arizona community. And due to that help, we've been able to make lots of progress within the last year. We've hired an employee, we've launched a scholarship program, we've launched an internship program. We've expanded our reach exponentially to places like Tucson, all the masjids in the valley, and we're building bridges with other civil rights organizations as well. And this is within just a one-year span. Imagine what we can do with your support during the next year. We have plans of expanding our programs even further. We want to take on more employees because really the cases that we're getting are just a drop in the bucket of what's out there. The fact is that because our outreach is limited at this time, a lot of people don't know that CAIR-Arizona exists. We need to be able to reach out to other communities. We need to educate people on a lot of the legislative issues that are going on, and we need to expand our reach with our elected officials as well. So I see ourselves forging a greater relationship with our elected officials in Washington, D.C., holding more in-district meetings with them as well over here, and talking to them about issues that are concerning Muslim Americans and the community at large over here. We need to forge that greater understanding in order to reach our greater goals. Now, from an organizational perspective, I really see a great outlook for our future because the Phoenix community has great youth at its disposal.
Organizations like CAIR needs to have tools and connections in order to help these people who are being discriminated against daily.
The reality is that Muslims are at the forefront of civil rights in America. This has been said by Reverend Al Sharpton, as well as many other civil rights leaders such as Glenn Greenwald and others. We need to be able to support our civil rights attribute of our community and ensure that the rights of our children and our grandchildren are protected.
And it's easy for us to sit there and say like, oh, why don't these people help out the ones who are wrongly accused of, going to Guantanamo Bay? Or why isn't this lady being helped whose hijab was grabbed off in the middle of the street by a random man and she was told to go to hell or go back to her country? It's easy for us to say that because we're not the ones who are in that position. But then When that happens to us, we're sitting there wondering where everyone is.
Feeling alone is not an option because organizations like CAIR are here to support us in everything we do, including education inside the university atmosphere.
This year we were able to take on cases ranging from hijab discrimination to workers' rights and inmate discrimination.
We have seen a great amount of excitement and enthusiasm around the programs that we're launching. So the future is looking bright for our organization. I really hope that you will support us and pray for us as well, because this is going to be a cornerstone of the Phoenix Muslim community for years to come.
So it's important that we have to stand up for ourselves. We can't rely on other organizations to stand up for us. We need to support ourselves and stand up for ourselves.
Muslims are at the forefront of the civil rights movement in America. CAIR-Arizona is one of its soldiers. We need you to support this fight.
Enjoyed that video. And again, we encourage you all to talk to us, the volunteers and the board members, if you're interested more about what CAIR does specifically, the things we've accomplished and what we hope to accomplish in the year to come. We also mentioned that we were able to award 2 scholarships this past year to young leaders in our community. They were two scholarship recipients this year that demonstrated their commitment to civil liberties and to community service, and they are 2 leaders that we hope to, inshallah, continue working with CAIR in the future and become young leaders, maybe board members or chair people of our organization as well. So at this time, I'd like to invite our 2 scholarship recipients to come up here, Layla Gad and Fidri Cortez. Okay.
May peace be upon all of you. So I'd like to take sorry guys, I'm just kind of nervous here. Okay, so I'd like to take a couple seconds to genuinely thank CAIR for protecting all of us. So basically everything that CAIR does affects each one of us just by being part of this community. And especially as being a college student, this really caters to me. So going to ASU, I heard a lot of like, oh, you're going to ASU, it's a really big school, you're going to encounter a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and they're probably going to be wrong. And so, like, I came in thinking that I'm going to have to fight, but that's not what I should have gone in thinking. It's definitely a two-way street. We need to educate ourselves. This is really important in our community, not so that we can fight, but so that we can appropriately represent our community. Once again, thank you, CAIR, for giving back to the community and showing students how to do the same.
I'd just like to say thank you to CAIR and everyone who contributed. I do appreciate the scholarship, and it's going to a very good cause.
We also have another very special guest here. I feel like with Imam Anas and Max Blumenthal and all these great speakers you've had and these amazing young leaders, it's hard to follow up, but we do have more great speakers up here for you tonight. The next guest I'm about to invite, you may have heard of Imam Johari Abdul Malik. He is known for many different things, so I'll try to summarize as best as I can. So he was the director of outreach for the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center. He is the former chair of the Coordinating Council on Muslim Organizations. He's the former head of the National Association of Muslim Chaplains in Higher Education. He is the president of the Muslim Society of Washington and a founding member of the Muslim Advocacy Commission in DC. Also, he serves as the chair of the government relations of the Muslim Alliance in North America, but most importantly, what all that means is his work goes hand in hand with CAIR's missions. He is a huge asset to the Islamic community, and he's laughing, but it's true. So I'm just going to invite him to come up here and explain what all that means for you. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I think the one thing she didn't warn you about is that unlike the other speakers, this is going to cost you. But I have good news. I know, Max, you were kind of presenting a little gloom and doom. On 9/11, I was walking into the waiting room at a hospital. I was a graduate student working on my PhD in genetics. And I could see from the waiting room of the hospital smoke coming out of the downtown area. The television in the lobby would show that it was the Pentagon. That day changed my life. So when I was on Hajj a few years ago with Yasser and his family, they didn't know I was a geneticist. Because sometimes there are circumstances that change your direction. I happened to be serving as the Muslim chaplain at Howard University at that time. And so it was sort of a conflict, not a conflict of interest, but a conflict of time. Where can my resources and my time and my energy be best served? All of us ask that question. But Imam Anas, I didn't spend a lot of time memorizing the Quran. But what I learned on that day was something that I want to give Max today. Imam, I want you to come up. You already got your award, you come up now. Because sometimes if you're reading the newspaper or if you're watching television, you have a sense that the news is negative about our reality. And I read in the Quran in the 9th surah, Surah Al-Tawbah, in the 32nd ayah. It's a quiz for the Imam. All right, get your phone out. You get your phone out. See, all the Imams, they carry the Quran in their iPhone now, so they can take it to the bathroom with them. You know, I used to see the Imam, what are you doing? He's putting his Quran before he goes to the bathroom. Now he just closed the app. But while the app is open, because it's a little slow, I want to welcome with the greeting of all of the prophets, for those of our friends of faith who have come together to stand for faith and freedom. I want all of the people from, we just call him Frank. Frank Milstead's group, can you please stand up? He sent his representatives from law enforcement to be with us tonight, because they are standing for faith and freedom. I know that Frank Milstead had to be somewhere else tonight, but we appreciate the fact that we have our friends present. I want to Imam, you look slower. 30-second ayah. While the Imam is looking up the verse, he didn't notice, that's why I want to remind you something about where we sit today. We remember, many of us remember where we were on that day. But I want you to think for a moment about where you are right now. Where are you? Where are you? Arizona. Mesa, okay. You specific. In the history of America, this is an important piece of ground. It is from the history of Arizona that you identified that there was a divide between whether Arizona should be a slave-holding state or whether it should be an area for freedom. And there was in this conflict all the way until the advent of the Civil War. The decision, which way will Arizona go? Will it go for freedom or will it go for slavery? Some didn't want Arizona, the Arizona territory, to come into the Union because they didn't want another slave-owning state. And it was that ultimately a decisive battle was fought in Arizona and won. And the Confederates had to move their headquarters to El Paso, making it then outlawed for slavery in the state of Arizona. I want to remind you about another place. Ready, man? Stand by. There was a day in Oklahoma where some people who were thought to be Muslims, that's what the news said, two Arab-looking men, I remember, two Arab-looking men were seen driving away. They were two of my friends, Nihad Awad and Ibrahim Hooper. Ibrahim Hooper from Minnesota, where he met Nihad Awad as a student. And they were on the scene with the professionalism that was required at a moment that many people really did not expect. And out of the trunk of their car, they produced a press conference that allowed the nation to see Muslims respond appropriately to a tragedy, not defensively, with the proper press release format that made people say, this is an organization that we have to reckon with. And so Allah says in the Quran, in the 9th surah, in the 32nd ayah, that they tried to extinguish the light of God with their mouths.
يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون.
Translate.
They want to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouth, and Allah refused but to complete His light, even if the disbelievers dislike it.
Takbir. Takbir. So that verse, when I read that, I said, I know what this is. There are other people who are going to try to extinguish the light of good, the light of God, with their mouths, with their media. 14 centuries ago, and Allah said Allah prefers that Allah's light, the light of goodness, is going to expand no matter how much the haters dislike it. Max? Thank you, man. And so I'm inspired, I'm motivated. I'm motivated because tonight we're going to be part of making history. making history because in America, it's not what you say, it's what you do. If you want to borrow from the Quran, Imam, I can handle this one myself. Inna ladina amanu, for those who have a connection with God, wa amilu salihat, and they follow it with deeds of righteousness. They're the best people. That's your job tonight. And it's not, and I'm sorry, I apologize in the beginning, but for many of you, because you're only concerned about yourself, that you're missing the big picture that Max is sharing with us. I counsel a lot of people, so I'm going to give you an acronym you can take home tonight. It's called Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. You think that a racist and a bigot has something particular against you, you're wrong. They don't only dislike you, they dislike black people. They don't really care for women a whole lot. They don't like immigrants, especially Hispanics. By the way, I think the Hispanics were here first. That's what I remember. Right, Fitri? Cortez was here first. We was here first, right? Now we're illegal immigrants. But it is in the struggle for freedom in America that they always pick on the new kid. Liban, isn't that right? Right? You go to school, you were big when you were in, you graduated from high school. Then you become a freshman in college, all the seniors kick you around. Now you have to go from elementary to high school, you go from the top of the food chain to the bottom. And so it is that the Muslim community now gets to be the new whipping boy. Every community in America has had to struggle. What I love about CAIR is that CAIR ignites the love of freedom in America once again. I am a lover of freedom. Love of freedom causes us to want to ignite that love of our Constitution. Now some of you might say, Imam, is the Constitution, is it Islamic to love the Constitution? See, man, you didn't ask that question, but some people ask that. Right? Constitution, Islamic. I know that two of the framers of the Constitution of America, men of faith, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. By the way, for those of you who love history, you know that James Madison did most of the writing and Thomas Jefferson did most of the talking. But just to show you our influence on this nation, according to Dr. Aziza Al-Hibri, professor at law at University of Virginia, she said, we know that Jefferson had a copy of the Quran. How do we know it? How do you know it? It's in the library. I know it, I don't know it because it was in the library. How do you know it? Keith Ellison did what? He took his symbolic oath of office on the Quran of Thomas Jefferson. So for all the haters who were saying, he's going to take the oath of office on the Quran, I said, yeah, but it was Thomas Jefferson. Stop. I know that Madison would have studied every document of state in order to frame the Constitution. And so he would have looked at the Magna Carta. But he also, if he is sitting with Jefferson, he would have seen the Treaty of Medina. Because in England, the Pilgrims came because they didn't have freedom of religion in England. If they were in France, they wouldn't have had enshrined in their documents of state the freedom of religion. They would have been Catholic. But if they had read the document of state of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would have found a document that said, La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in religion. People are free to practice their faith. And then in the Treaty of Medina, you would find the rights enshrined for Jews and others, Max, to practice their religion. And so I believe that if those who would like to say we want to keep Islam out of the law in America, then they need to start redacting the Bill of Rights, and they can start with the first one. That Congress shall make no right in establishing nor prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So for me today, I believe that our challenge is to preserve the Constitution of this nation. And we're now, Max, just the most recent example of those who have to fight to maintain it. I'm probably not going to talk about Sharia, but I do want to remind you of something. And many people have said it tonight already. The only way for us to meet the challenge of defending faith and freedom in America today is we have to be response able. You usually don't pronounce it like that. You usually say what? Responsible. But the reality is, in order for us to be able to respond, we have to have resources. On 9/11, I was working as a research scientist. After many months, Azhar, I had to decide whether I was going to spend my time in the laboratory or whether I was going to spend my time talking about Islam and fighting for the civil rights of Muslims in America. I was like Superman. I was telling Yasser earlier, I'd be in the OR 1 minute with scrubs on, then you get a call from CNN. I'd go down to the locker room, put on my Imam hookup, run out, get in the cab, go downtown. Right? The CNN interview only about 5 minutes. Get back in the car, they drop you off at the hospital, you go to the lab to change, come back in the OR. How you doing, guys? Everything's okay? Oh yeah, great, man. Can you help us with something? No problem, I'm here. For many of you, that's not a possibility. You can't quit your day job in order to do this work. In fact, I don't want you to quit your day job. All we need to do is to be able to provide CAIR with the resources so that they are response able. You're a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, a school teacher. Keep doing what you're doing, but provide the resources so that CAIR can do what they do. And I'm going to tell you something about it. If you look around, and I'm not criticizing anybody's organization. Nisa, where are you? Nisa and I, we served on the Diwan of Muslim Alliance for North America with Imam Siraj Wahaj. Most of the people who were on the board over 50. Right? I'm not going to tell you your age. You look at ISNA, you look at ICNA, you look at MAS, you look at wherever you want to look. Most of those organizations are run by old people. And when you look around the nation and you see the work of CAIR, you see young people who not only know America, they understand America, and America understands them. When you see them on television and they're speaking, they're so articulate. Why? Because they've been trained by CAIR, not by osmosis. And so what we need tonight are those who say that they are prepared to stand for faith and freedom by putting their money where their mouth is. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. So tonight we're looking for a leader. A leader tonight who can say that tonight I and my family, we will be the leaders for freedom in America by paying or pledging tonight $5,000 to CAIR. I have to remind you the end of the tax year is coming. Right, Max?
I don't know, I got back tax.
You got back tax, okay. Then you really ought to know that it's the end of tax year. I thank you for reminding you, right? Max, who gets the largest amount of international financial aid? The United States government. What country?
It's a certain country that
Certain country.
gets more than all of Africa
Get
combined.
more than all of Africa combined.
Over 50% of U.S. foreign aid
Over 50% of U.S. foreign aid
to the state of Israel,
goes to the state of Israel.
a country the size of New Jersey.
Almost the size of New Jersey.
All right.
Right? By the way, I visited the Holy Land, and I have to be honest, it is a land that is full of blessings. I can understand why people would fight over it. And there's some unique kinds of people there. They're never going to give up. They're going to stay on the land as long as they can. We have one anonymous for $5,000 takbir. Inshallah, the next person or family that said, I can do it, alhamdulillah, because I love freedom and I'm going to engage Max tonight in tax revolt. Isn't that what the Tea Party's about? Right? That's what the Tea Party was about, right? Tax revolt. The real Tea Party in Boston. So tonight we can exercise our freedom by saying that we can direct, because of the construct in America, that I can direct my tax deductible contributions where I like. It's still legal. To say I would rather my taxable liability max go to CAIR than to go elsewhere. So those who say, tonight, we want to be leaders for freedom. The second family to join us, $5,000, bidnillah. Let me see your hand. It's safe, you know, we have law enforcement. Inshallah, if you don't want to raise your hand, just send it forward, bidnillah. You can join anonymous. What? Isn't that, I thought there was some kind of person on the web, anonymous? I thought so. But anyway, we need you to come forward now. CAIR can't do it by themselves. They represent you. How many of you were born overseas? Raise your hand. Come on, I'm not Homeland Security. That brother looks, you know what I mean? He looks straight out of Rafah. Not raising my hand. How many of you lived in a community where there were other people who said, oh Allah, give me the chance so that I can come to America and become educated and become successful. Oh Allah, please bless me. And they didn't make it. You know anybody like that? You still remember them. Some of them were smarter than you are. Some of them were better looking. I know that's hard to believe, right? And Allah chose you. And Allah chose you for a reason. Because God knew that you would be here tonight instead of somewhere else. How many Muslims live in this area, geographically? 50,000. There are about, what, 300 people here? So 50,000 minus 300 don't think that they're ever going to have any problems with civil rights. No, Allah chose you to be here so that you would be the beneficiary in this life and in the hereafter. The second family that said, I can pay or pledge $5,000, bidnillah, to CAIR, do it now. Is that table right there? Yes? Looking anonymous, takbir. Takbir. He's like, oh no. Well, alhamdulillah, those who say, you know, there's a great statement by Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist. Do you have a wireless mic for me?
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, this is it? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Frederick Douglass. Everybody heard of Frederick Douglass, right? Okay. So it's on the citizenship exam. He said, where there is no struggle, there is no progress. Where there is no struggle, there's no progress. If you want to see change happen, you actually have to do something. If you don't want the status quo for your children, then you need to do something now. I want to remind you, America as a nation is always a work in process. It's dynamic. What was the amendment to the Constitution that freed blacks from slavery? What number? 13th Amendment freed African Americans. We fought a war in this country. People gave their lives because we believed that there was a fundamental principle that all people are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. I'm sorry this light thing is following. The struggle of African Americans to become full citizens in the 13th and 14th Amendments didn't make it just a better country for blacks. It made it a better country for everyone. How many of you in this room are women? How many of you don't know? No. The women's suffrage movement, what amendment to the Constitution? 19th Amendment, what year? 1920. The women's suffrage movement, although it was about women voting, something that the Prophet ﷺ did 14 centuries before, now, taking shura from women, but it ultimately made America better. The labor movement in America, where if you were a labor organizer, Max, they used to call you a communist. But the struggle for working people so that they could have their weekends off, that they could have benefits, that children wouldn't be forced into labor, made America better. You see, now, if you're just thinking about it, oh, it made it better for women. No, it made it better for everyone. It made it better for workers, yes, but it made it better for everyone. Tonight, if you want to be part of that struggle, Liban, be part of that struggle tonight, it won't just make it better for you. It will make it better for everyone. By the way, Sheikh, let me ask you a question, because you look the Imam, you know the answer to this question. When the Prophet was invited to go to the little town called Yathrib, did all the people want to become Muslim? All the people in Yathrib, they just all lined up, we want to become Muslim? All of them? Not all of them, no. Who else was there? Jews were there. Who else? Sabbaites, they call them, some Sabians, right? Other people. Why did they want him to come? Why? They won't become Muslim, but they're going to be signing on. Why? There's an Arabic word, begins with mim. Maslaha. Thank you. See your wife on it. Maslaha, that's the benefit of having a wife like this, you can become an imam. So, we need one more person to join us at $5,000. I'll tell you a really great joke. Well, Azhar Usman is not here, I tell you. We need one family to say they can fight for freedom tonight. Not to make Muslim better, to make America better. I love your son, by the way. I love you, son. I love you, son. Son, raise your hand again. Raise your hand. Say, Baba, what you doing? Don't you want to fight for freedom? Look at me. I don't want to grow up in a nation where I'm discriminated against like blacks were, or like women were, or like Jews were. I want to grow up in a country like that. In order for CAIR to be responsible, you need to do it now. You see, when the Mir Federal Building was attacked, they didn't have a meeting and say, you know what, we need to put together CAIR. They were prepared because they knew something was going to happen. You don't build a hospital after people get sick. You train physicians for years. Then you have them rotate so they can practice, to learn under the tutelage of somebody else, and then you send them out. Tonight, that's what we have to do. We have to send forward the resources so that CAIR in every part of the country will be able to respond. In Arizona, it's critical. Did you hear me? You know, people write history. They're going to write about Arizona. 2011. CAIR didn't have enough strength to beat back that referendum. But by the time they got to Oklahoma, CAIR Oklahoma took care of it. Takbir. CAIR Oklahoma took care of the business. Lest the fire in Virginia, I met with the new governor, Terry McAuliffe, and our question was to Terry, what are you going to do about the people bringing into the legislature anti-Sharia bills? He said, I'm going to do everything I can, Imam, to defeat them with the help of my members in the House, because we believe that it's unjust. I said, thank you, Terry. But that's what we have to do, and you can't do it after the fact and then lament. You have to be pro. I can't hear you. So I need one person who says, me and my family, we can pledge $5,000 bid the left. It's a serious business. Allah blessed you. You came here from somewhere else. You're living off the benefits of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which meant then that Asians could live wherever they wanted to live and work wherever they wanted to live. So now it's time to pay your dues. So someone who has been blessed by Allah, you have $5,000. Allah's going to send you more later. It's tax deductible. It's the right thing to do. These young people are volunteering. They need it. Those who say, Imam, I can't do 5,000, I can do 3,000. Raise your hand. 3,000. $3,000 will be left to support CAIR. Do it now. $3,000 in the left to support CAIR. By the way, I'm walking in the audience because I want you to feel uncomfortable. Yeah? Because if you knew what Max knew, you don't think it can happen in America, I know. what happened to the Jews in Germany, you said, can never happen in America. I think you're right. But it's not because of our complacency, it's because of our activism. And in order for us to have activism in today's world, you have to have money. Civil rights movement was fought by attorneys like Thurgood Marshall. I want to tell you a quick anecdote. It's not the story I was going to tell you because we didn't raise that money. Thurgood Marshall and some of the civil rights lawyers from Howard University, of which my mother and father went, I'm an alum of Howard. When they would go south to defend cases, they would take the train and they would wind up in the middle of the night getting off in Georgia or Mississippi, Alabama. And when the train would come into the station, they would be dressed up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And the people asked them, they said, why are you all dressed up in the middle of the night? All we're doing is taking you to somebody's house to sleep because Negroes can't stay in the hotel. They said, we know down here that there's some people who don't like civil rights lawyers. So if we die tonight, we want to look like this. I said, SubhanAllah. These people, they didn't have Islam. They had a love for freedom.